Welcome back, guys, to Ace Attorney Investigations 2, Prosecutors Gambit, where last episode, having forced Judy Bound to admit that she was indeed the poisoner and that this was all set up to lure out the real killer of Artie Frost, we found Gavel to be resistant to our efforts, sharing the committee's view of affairs as we pointed out some unexplained evidence. With Carmelo Gusto having conveniently woken up and back on his feet, we now have the supposed perpetrator in our sights as we connect some dots of logic to strive further towards the truth. The dots of logic which are kind of obvious about the first connection, the thing that we basically said before we needed to explore. The cooperation ended, Gusto helped Frost in the final but the favor wasn't returned. Sounds like motive to me if it stops Gusto getting what he wanted, the ultimate cookbook. That was the prize, after all. That was the prize. Mr. Gusto, you and Mr. Frost conspired to create works for the contest together, did you not? So you know my little secret? Mr. Fender was kind enough to inform me. Mr. Frost was in charge of the designs while you were in charge of the flavor. Is that correct? What can I say? I still had a long way to travel on the road to becoming a master confectioner. But you only collaborated up through the semi-final. Something changed after that. We both wanted to show what we could do. Show that we were better than Tangaroa. Objection! Then why did you help Mr. Frost with his entry for the final? What grounds do you have to say that? Your own statement, made to Mr. Von Karma 18 years ago. You told him that you had been working together right up until the day before the final. Mr. Frost's entry was carved entirely from blocks of flavored ice. Ice which would have needed at least a day to freeze, and whose flavors would therefore have already been prepared by Mr. Gusto. Yes, which lines up perfectly with what Gusto told me, that he helped Frost until the day before the final. In that case, why didn't Mr. Frost reciprocate and help Mr. Gusto in return? Objection! I can hardly be expected to read the minds of the dead. So, why didn't Mr. Frost help you in return, I submit that your relationship broke down for some reason, and that became the basis of your motive for murder. That's not how it was. Sure, we stopped working together, but it was all perfectly friendly. You stopped working together? In a friendly way? Kinda hard to imagine, but okay. Besides, how do you think I did it exactly? You think I just strolled into Tangaroa's room and killed Frost? I couldn't have killed the man while Tangaroa was in there working on his chocolate pieces, could I? So you see, it cannot be me. I wouldn't be so sure. There must be a window of time when Mr. Tangaroa wasn't in his room. And if I can prove that, I can prove that Mr. Gusto had the opportunity to kill Mr. Frost. I mean, it'd be when going to Delicia's room, wouldn't it? Right then. What have we got? Timing of the murder, remaining exposures, and wanted the cookbook. Remaining exposures and wanted the cookbook. The pictures and the cookbook don't really go in together here. Timing of the murder. I wanted the cookbook either. No, none of these really work. Had Gusto's goal been to look for the ultimate cookbook all along? And more film had been used up than Tangaroa expected as someone else used the camera. Timing the murder, Gusto couldn't have killed Frost with Tangaroa in his room. So a method was needed to get Tangaroa out of his room. Right then. So are you saying that the camera was used deliberately so that Tangaroa would have to leave to replace the film? And then we've got... So we could enter his room to look at the ultimate cookbook? Or to create timing for the murder? That's the real question. I mean, the murder was probably opportunity crime. Oh, wait. What if the fact that he was in there as well, of course dragging the body from A to B, we create a way to go and see the book, but someone else was there. It's like they were all like a weird triangle, right? I'm going to link these two together and say that we're creating a place to look at the cookbook. A time. Okay, thank God. Photographing the cookbook's contents would be the perfect way to steal his secrets undetected. I didn't even think about photographing the cookbook. And what if Mr. Gusto just did just that? What if he used Mr. Tangro's camera to photograph the book? It'd be the perfect crime. So much better than stealing it and getting chased by the cops. A sneaky snapshot, 20, huh? That could work. It's a really good plan, actually. The only question is, when would he have done it? Good question. What about during afternoon tea? Didn't Alicia say that Gusto and Frost had missed out on the little tea party they had? Well, there we got the timing. Which brings me to the next question. When do we know for certain that Mr. Frost was still alive? And after the contest began, nobody saw hide nor hair of Frost as he had secluded himself in his room. And the only person capable of entering his locked room was Tangaroa, possessing as he did the only key. Miss Scone, were Mr. Tangaroa's works the only ones you sampled? No, dear. I couldn't help myself. When I'd finished my afternoon tea, I tiptoed over to Chillywink's room for a little taste too. Mr. Frost had kept to himself inside his room after the contest had started, but he was gone by the time Miss Scone snuck into it to sample his work, meaning there's a good chance he was murdered before the end of afternoon tea. I love how I created my own scenario there, where someone got to the camera, took the pictures just to force Tangaroa to leave the room so you could look at the book, and didn't even once think, wait a second, you could just, it's an instant camera, you could take pictures of the pages of the book, which is just as good as having the book, and then just take the pictures. It's like, wait a second. I didn't figure that at all. I created a completely, I think, somewhat plausible scenario. Otherwise, though, Frost and Gusto didn't attend afternoon tea, which is when the murder would have happened. We can be sure that Mr. Frost was alive until the beginning of afternoon tea, making tea time the only window during which Mr. Gusto could have killed him. Are you satisfied with Mr. Gusto's story now, Mr. Edgeworth? Sadly, I'm afraid I'm still rather unsatisfied, but things are finally starting to become clear, and the truth will soon come to light at last. Do you mean to say that you have uncovered new evidence? Evidence? No. I was hoping I might convince Mr. Gusto to open up to us about it instead. Oh, is it mind games time again? It is. Mr. Gusto, I have a question for you. A dotty question by the look of it. I said I have a question for you. What is it? You chose to make your entry for the final on your own. I told you, I wanted to test myself. I wanted to prove I was the best in the world. Objection! If that were the case, then surely you wouldn't have chosen to cheat in the first place. So tell me, Mr. Gusto, why did you feel the need to team up with Mr. Frost? "18 years ago, Mr. Gusto and Mr. Frost collaborated in the confectionery contest. But why did they work together, and why did they enter the contest in the first place? That's the information I need to get out of my opponents somehow." 4? Mr. Gusto seems to have a habit of pretending to be asleep when things aren't going his way. Let's start by focusing on why he chose to work with Mr. Frost. By my hand, now is the time to dig up the truth that was buried all those years ago. Why did you collaborate with Mr. Frost? Mr. Gusto, what inspired you to collaborate with Mr. Frost? We were acquaintances before we were contestants. He was interested in entering the contest, so we decided to sign up together. And your decision to pair up with a sculpture had nothing to do with your lack of faith in your skills. You don't know me. We joined forces because we wanted to make the most perfect creations possible, that's all. Is this your agitation? Frost's son and mine were in the same grade at school, so we got along pretty well too. Oh, so you were just two friends who happened to try for the title of world's greatest confectioner. It's not his agitation. Wake up. Pretending to be asleep when the going gets tough won't work on me, I'm afraid. I half thought that maybe the going to sleep would be the biding the time thing, but surely that's just purely in his wheelhouse, isn't it, really, when you think about it? Mr. Frost was a sculptor, Mr. Gusto. I doubt he cared much about winning a title for confectioners. In which case, he probably had a different motive for taking part in the contest, wouldn't you say? Fine, it was me. I wanted that title. Frost was only in it for the prize, the ultimate cookbook. I see. And since your objectives dovetailed so neatly, you decided to work together. But then something happened, a breakdown in your relationship perhaps? If so, I want to know why. Mr. Prosecutor, I'm still quite unwell after my brush with death. Push me too hard. And I'll be on my way back to the medical room. No, wait! Then you better wrap this up quickly. I'm already dangerously low on patience. Mr. Gusto was trying desperately to make his escape, but he's not going anywhere yet. Not as long as he's still keeping things from me. So let's figure out what he was really after next. There's no time to lose. I need to pick the right line of questioning and fast. Did you want to appear on Bacon Bop? Probably not. Did you want more than just the title? You too had your eyes on something other than the title, didn't you? After all, I'm not sure the title of world's greatest confectioner even counts for that much. Now you're insulting the way of the confectioner. My only goal was to win the title. I didn't care about anything else. You have no idea how much it would have meant to me. Okay, agitated. Bide. Look, my sense of design may not have been up to snuff back then, but you should see me now. Oh, so you've improved. You bet I have. I didn't do all that training in Zhang Fa for nothing. Agitated. Bide. I looked up to Tangaroa, you know. Well, it's a face. Spent hours poring over the designs of his work. I even used to watch his show with my son. Wait, did he really want to be on Bacon Bop? Was it to get your son on Bacon Bop? Should I have chosen that first? I'm so confused. Sounds to me like Mr. Tangaroa's work was especially influential in your early studies. And with his recipe book, you might have even become the best someday. Maybe. The book was a real treasure, no doubt about that. Any confectioner would have wanted it. Gotta sleep again. So you were interested in the book too? You claim that your only goal was to win the title, yet you also seem to have had an interest in the contest prize, the ultimate cookbook. The greatest collection of recipes by the world's greatest confectioner. I can't say I had absolutely no interest in it. So whenever you go to sleep is when we hit you with a chess piece. And even if I did, what exactly is so wrong with that? Nothing, I suppose. Only that the book contained recipes for medicines, not desserts. And everyone who entered the contest supposedly knew that. I feel like I'm finally getting somewhere. I can't let him slip from my grasp now. I just need to stay calm and keep the pressure on. Next, let's find out why he wanted the cookbook. I was wondering if he was sent by the government at this point in time. Did you know what the book was really worth, or did you need it to help you make your sweets? Pause! I need to think. And now I can't see the options because I've paused. Did Did you need it to help you make your sweets? Or did you know what the book was really worth? Let's go with worth. Did you know how valuable the cookbook really was? What kind of question is that? It's a collection of Tangaroa's recipes. Well, actually, yeah, that's a stupid question now I think about it. There wasn't a confectioner in the world who wouldn't have wanted to get their hands on it. I don't have a clue as to how to proceed with this line of questioning. I better try another tack. Okay, did you need it to help you make your sweets then? I went down the wrong line first. So your plan was to win the cookbook and use it to help you with your own creations. What else? But like that could have improved my craft tenfold. You could have made a lot of money if you sold it. I don't know much about what was actually in there. But it was worth more than money, I'll tell you that. To a pharmaceutical company, they could have sold the stuff in there for, you know, you patent that crap and then break people over the coals for it. It's just the way of life at the moment. Insulin, etc., you know? Like, my God. It's out there, it's for everyone, and yet it costs an absolute ton in some places. Bad medical companies. Bad pharmaceuticals. I can't believe it's allowed to happen. You know more than you're letting on? You're not agitated. Come now, Mr. Gusto. I think you know more about the Ultimate Cookbook than you claim. You're sleeping. They told us a little about it at the start of the contest. But you know what kind of recipes it actually contained, don't you? And that they weren't dessert recipes at all. Ah! I see you did your homework. Fine, so you know what was really in there. The Ultimate Cookbook, or the Angel's Cookbook to give it its proper title. It's a collection of chemical formulas and ways to synthesize new medicines nobody had ever heard of. So we did know that the cookbook actually contained recipes for medicines. This could be an important clue. So did you know what the book was really worth? Did you know how valuable the cookbook really was? What kind of question is that? It was a collection of Tangaroa's recipes. There wasn't a confectioner in the world who wouldn't have wanted to get their hands on it. Time to deploy my clue. Except you knew that that's not what's really in there. Your designs may have improved thanks to your training in Zhengfa, but you clearly didn't do enough work on your skills of deception. You already admitted that you knew the Ultimate Cookbook was a collection of recipes for medicines. Thereby making your interest not gastronomical, but pharmaceutical in nature. You needed medicine, didn't you, probably? You're a confectioner, Mr. Gusto. You had no professional interest in revolutionary new medicines. You suggested your interest must have been personal. I underestimated you. Fine, you're right. Winning the title wasn't the only reason I entered the contest. I needed one of the recipes in that book. It was for my son. He was sick. He was. Tell me more. So this is the shaved head son. Is it shaved head because of illness? I've been wondering what the son's connection was, when the sons would actually be brought up here. Very interesting. That's none of your business. I've told you as much as you need to know. He looks rattled, but I can't let him off the hook. Let's find out what this mystery illness was. I've almost gotten to the bottom of this. I can feel it. Just a few more moves. What's the name of your son's condition? Was the book necessary for him to get better? Tell me more about your son. Let's start light. Tell me a little more about your son. He was my pride and joy, and my biggest fan. And you entered the contest in order to help him. You clearly don't have children of your own. Any father would have done the same. I would have done anything to help him. Anything! He's agitated. He would come see me at the contest venue too, right up through the semi-final. Really? He didn't get in the way of your work? If you were trying to beat Samson Tangaroa, surely you didn't have the time to look after a child. Yeah, well, I wanted to do what I could for him. He said he wanted to always be the first to try my creations. So he wasn't too sick to join you? You said your son was sick, Mr. Gusto, and yet he was able to come and join you for the contest. It wasn't that kind of illness. Nothing life-threatening anyway. See, life-threatening would be motive. This feels like it could be an important clue. Okay then. Was the book necessary for him to get better? Seems like the follow-up line of questioning to me. So you needed the cookbook to cure your son? Yeah, nowadays you can get the medication you needed anywhere. But back then, that book was our only hope. Which is why I didn't dare waste my time on fancy tea parties. I had to give my all to my work. But what about Mr. Tangaroa's work? Surely that tea break gave you the perfect opportunity to go steal a glance at it. And what makes you think I had the energy or time to care about what the others had made? But you cared about Mr. Tangaroa's work, didn't you? I think you've made it abundantly clear how much interest you had in Mr. Tangaroa's work. What's more, if you were that determined to win the ultimate cookbook, I seriously doubt you would have passed up on a chance to take a peek at your competitors' entries. I'd had plenty of chances throughout the contest to see and sample my rival's work, you know. But each time I did, nothing seemed to have any flavor. Oh? Must have been nerves or something. Nothing Mr. Gusto tasted had any flavor. Do you have this? Okay. Any flavor at all, though? Any whatsoever? That seems like it could be an important clue. Okay, what was the name of your son's condition? It's the only one we haven't been to. Could you tell me the name of the disease your son suffered from? You're a real cold customer, Mr. Prosecutor. Isn't it enough that he was seriously ill? Why would you force me to tell you more? Time to deploy my clue. But it wasn't life-threatening, was it? You've already shared with me that your son's illness wasn't life-threatening. So why are you so reluctant to share any further details? May not have been life-threatening, but that doesn't mean it hadn't been life-altering. I see. That must have been very hard on both of you. Of course it was. That was why I did everything I could to find a cure. We were desperate. He couldn't taste anything, not even his favorite desserts. Nor could you. Did he have a taste disorder? Was he overweight? As I understand it, the Ultimate Cookbook contains a recipe for a very particular medication. One that Mr. Tangaroa used to cure himself of his own taste disorder. So, he had it too? Two, you say? So your son has a taste disorder then, am I correct? How did I let that slip? You've been asking me to believe that you needed to win the cookbook in order to cure your son. But was that really the case? Of course it was. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm not so sure that's true based on everything you've told me. Time to deploy my clue. You were sick yourself, weren't you? Taste disorders are difficult to live with. It isn't easy not being able to enjoy your food. You should know, after all. You just told me you'd experienced something like that during the contest. You said that nothing you sampled had any flavor. Those were your words, correct? Which would seem to suggest that you were suffering from a taste disorder. A confectioner without a sense of taste. Not exactly ideal. Are you sure it wasn't actually your own condition you were seeking a cure for, Mr. Gusto? I've had enough of your speculations. I managed just fine in that contest. Made all my own entries, no problem. But you were working with someone to do the stuff. Sorry, but I'm afraid you're contradicting your own testimony. You already admitted that you and Mr. Frost had worked together during the contest. It's too late to claim you did it all on your own now. That was what I needed to hit. You would have us believe that you are a man of principle, a dedicated student of the confectioner's art. Yet you abandoned those principles and conspired with Mr. Frost to rig the contest. Also, you could cure your own taste disorder. You got me, Mr. Prosecutor. As you said, my sense of taste was shot. My son's was fine. I kept it hidden for so long. 18 years and nobody knew. Sadly, you can lie to others, but you can't lie to me. Both Mr. Gusto and Mr. Frost entered the contest, hoping to obtain the ultimate cookbook for the medicine that would cure Mr. Gusto's disorder, and the money it would bring in for Mr. Frost. Thus, an uneasy alliance was forged, and that, I believe, is checkmate. Also, I'd just like to add, if you just asked Mr. Tangaroa to cure a taste disorder, you probably would have just done it. Again, another sad case in that sense. I'll admit it. You're good. I never told anybody of this, but you figured it all out anyway. It's true. 18 years ago, I developed... How do I pronounce that? Agusia. Oh, that sounds mystical. Agusia. Age-usia? Agusia. What's agusia? It's a taste disorder that makes it so you can't taste anything at all. A confectioner's worst nightmare. Mr. Fender, is this what Mr. Tangaroa had as well? No, the big man had what they call dissociated taste disorder. Basically, some things you could taste just fine, while others had no flavor at all. So he suffered too. Can't have been easy. Not when there wasn't a way to cure it on the market. Which is why you needed Mr. Tangaroa's cookbook. Do you admit now that that was the real reason you entered the contest? It was only one of the reasons. I wasn't lying when I said I wanted the title. When I put my mind to something, it gets done, and I won't lose to anybody. I may not have been able to taste it then, but I still knew my stuff was good enough to win. Oh, so you went into the final thinking you stood a good chance of winning? Of course. What was it that Fender said about what Mr. Tangaroa thought of Mr. Gusto's creations? Mr. Gusto's creations were a perfect balance of flavor and design, at least up through the semi-final. But disappointingly, his entry for the final was subpar on both counts. Were you getting someone to taste test? A certain someone who then wasn't taste testing anymore, and therefore you had no guide? We were told your entry for the final was far from the prize-winning taste sensation you describe. What happened, Mr. Gusto? What went wrong that day? Fine. You want me to talk? I'll talk, but you're not going to like what I have to say. Oof. We have testimony. Frost and I were working together right up through the semi-final. I handled the flavor, he did the designing. But I wanted to face Tangaroa in the final on my own. No help, just me and my skills. So I helped Frost with his entry, but mine I did alone. If it didn't taste good in the final, that's on me. What can I say? I lack training. And that's all there is to it. Happy now? There don't seem to be any obvious contradictions in his testimony. Yep, not that I thought it'd be easy to get anything real out of him. He's managed to not let slip what really happened for 18 years after all. Why don't you try pushing him a bit, Malzarino? See if you can't shake something loose. I think I just might have to, Fender. Okay, we are in the realm of testimony after a big mind chest, which means that we might be very near the end. It's once we get to this kind of point that we can get to the real truth. So with that said, we might end an episode a little early with a big old mind chest session now having just been completed. It was interesting to find out as well that we can go down the wrong path without suffering a penalty, that we can then just come back and we just need a clue. So therefore, as long as you're seemingly not getting possibly the biding time bits wrong, you might not even get a time penalty. Or there might not be time penalties at all because we haven't actually seen one yet. You could probably just go down the wrong route. It's just a matter of pressing fast at each and every opportunity and going through it. It's interesting, this mind chest. Is there really that much of a path to failure? I do not know. But anyway, with Gusto here, giving testimony, we find out the truth, or get closer to it, next time on Ace Attorney Investigations to Prosecutors Gambit. I'll see you next time for more, and until then, I say, bye-bye.